Our next panelist is talking about surviving to thriving, wellness and leadership at home and at work. We have a panel of very, very talented speakers.
That's right. And I should use our...
Thank you, Veronica and Teresa and Brett.
Yeah, thank you. Let me first introduce Brett Cooper, my angel, as always. And thank you to you first, Veronica, for introducing us. And our next panel will be on leadership at home and at work. And it all links back to wellness. And our moderator is Brett Cooper, if I could have him on camera as well. Brett now joins us from Melbourne in Australia. He was staying here in Hong Kong for many, many years. And Brett, angel, look at that behind him. It's so pretty. It's such a gorgeous soul. And we met through work, of course, and we're great friends. And his former company was actually a client of mine. It's still a client of mine. And Brett has always been in C-suite leadership roles as in human resources. And, you know, he's a true leader in my own words. I don't tend to like to read bios because everyone on this summit here is so dear to my heart. And I know them personally and professionally. And Brett, and what I mean by a true leader is that he leads what he preaches and he practices what he preaches. And he's always been a person to look after his employees and the people in his life. And, you know, as a consultant to his employees, I see that, I've seen that over the years. And he always puts his employees as a priority. He always prioritizes their needs and make sure that they're well, make sure they grow personally in their own well-being, and he makes sure that they grow in their careers as well. Now that he moved back to Australia, it is a bit of a loss for Hong Kong, but he's going to continue all that he thrives in and all that he's built up in his entire life to help others grow. And we've been talking about that a lot. And this is why I invited him. And it's really my honor to introduce to you and hand over the stage to my dear friend, Brett Cooper. Thank you, Brett.
Wow. Thank you, Teresa, so much. I'll take the recording. I'll take the recording of that. Yeah, I'm a little bit blushed and put it as my CV. So I'll just send the link to the recording for my CV. But thank you for the kind introduction. Before we start, I'd just like to thank you, Teresa, and also Veronica for such an amazing summit, and also for having us as a panel on to talk about this particular topic, which I love so much, and the panelists that are talking today are such an amazing group of people. And the topic is surviving to thriving, wellness and leadership at home and at work. So we're looking at to balance the whole lot up in terms of leadership and wellness here, not just in the workplace, but also at home. So we've got some fantastic panelists, which I'll introduce, and I'll let them introduce themselves as well. But for any questions, of course, from the audience, please put them into the chat. We may not get to all of them, but we'd love to answer any questions you have, and happy to be guided by you in terms of where the discussion you want it to go, essentially. So I'll kick off and introduce our first panelist is Pauline Williams. She's the Director, Relationship and Management for Atrium HR Consulting that's based in Hong Kong. So Pauline, over to you. Could you give us a little bit of an introduction on yourself and why this topic is so important to you?
Sure. Thank you, Brett. Thank you for the honour of speaking with such esteemed panelists. Thank you, Teresa, Veronica and Brett. Looking forward to this. In terms of me, personally, I've been in Hong Kong 27 years, believe it or not. I only intended to come here for 2, but I've been here for 27, which is, I think people have heard a lot. This is a wonderful dynamic city. It's been through a lot of troubles over the past couple of years to 3 years in terms of all sorts of different ways, politically and also in now the pandemic and affecting around the world. But from my point of view here in Hong Kong and across Asia, which I take care of, why does in terms of me, I'm actually half Chinese, I'm Eurasian, I'm from 2 cultures. And so there's also that cultural factor that we're always thinking about when it comes to certain fundamentals like we're talking about today. I think that really plays an influence too. I'm here in Hong Kong and I have my parents, I'm lucky to have my parents with me who are in their 80s. So, you know, Brett, if I veer off topic, please correct me, because I tend to do that quite a lot. I tend to go off at a tangent. I think you know me well enough to know that I do that sometimes. Yes. And other than that, in terms of working, I've been with my current group, the current company, for a total of 13 years in terms of the parent group alliance. And yes, director of Atrium, HR consulting speaks for itself. And I'm sure Brett probably may have, or others may have questions for me on that later on. But that's me. And yes, and I don't mind sharing with you all at this stage that I've been through my own mental health issues. So that's why this topic is especially important to me. And I'm sure everyone around the world, all on this panel, we all have our stories to tell. And I think we're all going to share that together this afternoon. Thank you, Brett.
Thanks, Pauline. Thank you so much. And I have worked with Pauline in Hong Kong a lot, and you don't go off topic. You can share a range of different stories so well, and I always take so much away from you, as has so many people in Hong Kong. So you're an amazing person over there, and I'm
relieved to know that.
I'm looking forward to your sharing throughout the panel today.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so our second panelist is George Lee. George is an organizational development, training and learning specialist. He's a resilient leadership coach and trainer and a retired military officer. So I'm looking forward to hearing some stuff about how you built this military career into your leadership, both at home and at work. So George, please tell us a little bit about yourself and why the topic's so important to you.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Brett. And hi, everyone. I'm George. I'm from Singapore. Born here, bred here, and I actually have dedicated more than half of my life defending this small little country. Well, leadership has been close to my heart for as long as I know, because it's about being one true self. And a lot of people that I've encountered or that I've interacted with, they tend to feel that leadership is pretty much deviated from what they do or who they are at home versus who they are at work. But contrary to that belief, I always feel that a leader is always a leader, no matter what position he's in, no matter what context he's put into, and no matter what capacity he actually upholds, because a person is true to himself, and he should be that way all the time. And this is where, if we feel that leaders are not human beings, and thereby forcing or putting on the false front that leaders cannot suffer from mental breakdown, that's where we absolutely is wrong. And I hope today's session is going to be insightful for whoever is around the room tonight, tonight, wherever you are, just so that you realize that leaders do have moments of down. Leaders do have breakdown situations where they felt helpless, but it is that resilience that leaders bring forth in whatever context that they are facing, whatever problem they're facing, that can help them and also the people they are leading pull through any difficult time. That's why this topic is so close to my heart, because as parents or even in the family, especially during this pandemic period, it is so troubling. Well, you can call it a trouble, or you can actually use that as an opportunity to bring forth your resilience up to the front and help everyone get by this difficult time. So yep, I look forward to having a fantastic dialogue with everyone in the room, and also having fantastic questions from the floor. Thanks, Brett.
Thank you so much, George. I really look forward to hearing more from you throughout the panel today, and I couldn't agree with you more. And I like your point that, leaders don't need to be just resilient on their own, and they always show a good sign. They can have weakness as well, which you learn from. So I love that. Sure, yes. As a key point for sure. Okay, our third panelist is Dr. Nicholas Letting, joining us from Kenya. Dr. Letting is a transformative leader, social scientist, and Chancellor and CEO of the Management University of Africa, based in Kenya. I must admit, if you looked at the video that Dr. Letting put up, I felt like I was in an African safari. I've watched it a few times now. It's just an amazing video he put up. So thank you so much, Dr. Letting, for joining us today. So I'll hand to you to introduce yourself.
Thank you, Brett. Good morning, everyone. My name is Dr. Nicholas Letting. I am a business expert consultant. I'm a CEO now of a state corporation in Nairobi, Kenya. I'm a Kenyan African in East Africa. And I've lived here in Africa since I was born. With a lot of travels to other countries. I've been to Asia, I've been to Europe, I've been to America, and And of course, in East Africa. In Africa, we believe in welcoming visitors, and that's why I shared a video of a safari to Kenya. As a corporation, as a state corporation in Kenya, we have a population of about 50 million Kenyans. And last year, during the COVID, when COVID broke out in Kenya, in Africa, sometime in March, it really affected us. It affected a number of corporations, institutions, families. Families broke down. There have been people with depression, stress levels have gone up, but leaders have survived. As a leader, we have been able to overcome it through a lot of balance between family, work, and we have what is called work-life balance, in which we are able to support our colleagues in the office. I run an organization called the Kenya Accountants and Secretary National Examination Board, KASNEP, as a CEO. I used to be the Vice Chancellor of the Management University of Africa, a private university. I've worked for about 23 years in both private and public organizations. I started off in a multinational corporation. I'm sure most of us know about the British American Tobacco. I served there for some time and moved on to an educational institution. And now I'm in a government organization. And therefore, I'm very glad to be in this process, in this meeting, Brett, and the rest of my panelists. And I welcome everyone to be there together with us. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Dr. Letting. Such a diverse career. I love it. And I'm looking forward to hearing more about your experiences over time. I do have some specific questions for each panelist, which I'll get through throughout the panel discussion. But now I'll hand over a question to everyone, and you can share your view. I'll share my view as we go as well. So perhaps, Pauline, we can start with yourself, and then each person can share their view on it. Can you share with us some examples of where you've seen really great leadership? What are the traits or qualities you see in great leaders at this particular point in time?
I think especially over the past year and 2 years, I think the upside, if there is an upside to the pandemic situation, is that certain things have been really brought forward and moved to the top of the agenda for HR and leadership in HR and C-suite, is that awareness and promoting that awareness to employees and across the organization. There have been some great examples with many of the clients that we work with that Atrium works with across Asia, including yourself, Brett, of leaders really listening to their people, because after all, people are the business. Without them, you don't have a business. They make that business operate. Well-being in business sense for laggards or old school thinkers that don't recognize this, well-being will impact the bottom line. And well-being of the people, because the people are the business, is of the utmost importance. And there has been great examples of this from many of the leaders that we worked with across the spectrum of industries in Asia, that really listen. I don't mean just sending out surveys or doing ad hoc questionnaires. I mean really, obviously within restrictions now, having conversations, trying to promote the normalization of conversations around mental health, encouraging your people not to be afraid to speak out, that it's okay to not be okay, to really listen to them. Collaboration is another thing from leaders, is collaborating. You're not expecting to be talking to or instructing or dictating to your people. Good leaders like to listen to your people talking to you, hearing their ideas, encouraging them to express their feelings. Otherwise, how can you understand what they're going through, especially at a hard time like this? And there has been many examples of this, I'm really pleased to say, that have come up. I mean, recently, for example, I'm not mentioning the names and anything because of confidentiality, but we've been working with organizations where the leadership, it's starting from top down. And again, I can't stress this enough, it's all about awareness. Awareness needs to be from leadership and then cascading down through every fabric of your organization and your people. But the leadership in HR, we had a client recently. There were over 200 of their regional leadership team on a Zoom, just like we are now, sharing stories, sharing their experiences. And just like Brett said earlier, and George and Dr. Lettin have mentioned, in terms of leadership, don't be afraid to show your own vulnerability. Don't be afraid to show it's not a weakness, it's a strength. It takes courage. It takes that courage. And setting that example and sharing those stories is not only helping yourself as a leader or helping yourself in general, it's helping others and giving them that courage to speak out, to reach out and get that level of support that they require.
I love it, Pauline. I agree with you totally. Listening and communication is so important, and we'll touch more on communication a little bit later on. But showing your vulnerability, I think, is okay. I noticed, you know, over about a year and a half ago now in Hong Kong, for a Zoom call, no one ever turned on their camera. And at least for my team anyway, they only started turning on their camera when I decided to do a Zoom call on a Friday morning after I had not shaved all week and I didn't do my hair. And if they see the leader looking like that, then suddenly it's okay if I turn on my camera and I'm not, you know, looking my best perhaps, or feeling my best. Everyone goes through different things, and it's kind of funny how a little thing like that can change things. So I really love your example. It's a great one. George, how about yourself? Can you share a little bit for yourself in terms of those great strong qualities and traits from good leaders?
Yes, I totally agree with what Pauline have shared, and in my experience of military leadership, that's where the stigma of being a military leader becomes so embedded into every one of us who's leading hundreds of people behind us. And the fact that we can't fall seems to be a wrong and a thought that's leading us down towards negativity. Now, because in my years of growing up as a leader, this is what I've encountered. I've learned this terminology called servant leadership. In order to lead, you need to serve. And who are the people you're serving? It's exactly the people you're leading. So in the world that I start to be growing, in the world that I start to grow up, a leader means to serve others. Now, if this leader is not willing to serve, then pretty much he's not fit to be leading someone. And so with that mindset being brought up in the years of, I spent 24 years in the Singapore military. I've grown to come to a point where I've admitted, like what Pauline have mentioned, showing our vulnerability, because the fact that we are being led by a human being up in front of us shows that this person he's human, he has emotion, and he does need time to rest, to take a step back and having someone else take his position. So it is perfectly okay for a leader to drop back to second or third, just so that his successor or his deputy can take over the fort, because that leader needs to rest. Now, the part about showing our vulnerability is I take it to be similar to taking a rest, because when a person is always holding the fort, he will break down, and in no time, when he really breaks down, he's letting his people down. So a leader will have to be true to himself, stand up to the test and say that, you know what, guys, I'm really tired. I need a break now. Can someone else take over my position? Just for that short period. Maybe it could be a few hours, a few days, or maybe even for a few weeks. And this is where, as a leader that I've been through, I always go with this mindset. Now, you always treat your people, treat them well, but you train them well. Train them well so that they can live on their own without your presence. But you treat them well so that they will stay with you. Why so? Because a leader is not about how much he knows. Because now the fact it goes like this. No one cares how much you know until they know how much you care about them. And that's where leadership comes in. It's about going down to everyone's heart and touching them with your truest self, not putting on a false mask and say that, you know what, guys, this is who I am at work, and I'm your leader. So you listen to me, I lead, you follow. But behind the scene, that's it. This person is a totally different person. And I guess time will tell how this leader is going to behave in the actual war front, because a true person will be truest in 24/7, whether he's at work, whether he's at home. And yeah, I guess this is what I believe should be the real characteristic, the real trademark of a leader, being ready to serve the people he's actually leading.
Yeah. I like it a lot, George. I couldn't agree more. And I think even about sporting leaders and so forth, you think about Michael Jordan, he can't win the game on his own. You've got to play as a team, and letting others flourish and play and do what they need to do, and sharing the load of leadership, I think, is important. It's really about the team rather than about the leader themselves all the time. I couldn't agree more with you on that. Precisely. Over to you, Dr. Letting. You've got so much experience as you shared before. I'm really looking forward to hearing what you think in terms of traits of great leadership and what you teach in terms of at the University of Africa on this particular topic as well.
Thank you very much, Brett. Mine is to say that there are 3 levels or types of leadership. There are leadership at the society level, maybe as a family person. You lead your family, whether extended family or a nuclear family, and you also lead the community in terms of, I am a member of a church, and I attend a church service every week. And also a member of a corporation, state corporation in Kenya. And therefore, it provides, when I look at the traits of a leader, it talks about communication. How do you communicate with the people that you serve? And I like the question brought by George about the servant leadership. We serve people. Pauline brought about a number of, a raft of issues about leadership. And for me, the 3 main things that I would like to discuss about are the leadership and communication, the leadership and culture, and the leadership and being able to bring change. So about communication, how do you communicate situations of difficulties? I look at it and say, you have to communicate either way. You prepare the people through a group sessions or individuals. So sometimes I call members of my staff to my office individually, and we have a chat, a candid discussion. We are not doing very, very well as an institution. What do you think? So we have a dialogue between the individual member of staff, and what they say is that I think they give solutions. And so during that communication and dialogue, I realized that as a leader, it brings a lot of solutions. Everybody has a sort of solution they want to bring about. So the other one about culture. You notice there's some culture where people are reserved. They're introverts. They don't want to communicate. So what they do is that they prefer to work with other people. So you allow them to communicate through subgroups. Maybe you put them in departments or divisions where they can be able to share their ideas, and the leader of the team will come and forward and share the ideas about what we need to do, about how can we work together to bring about the change that we want. Now, that takes me to the change. Any organization that is not open to change will die off one day. So as a leader, you need to bring about the change that involves the people, bring the people together. It can be within the organization. You take them out for a team building activity, share them, open up. I like what Pauline was saying, where they need to know that you are indeed a human being and you are weak. You are weak with situations where you are weak and you need to share your thoughts, your experiences, that you are vulnerable as well, just like they are. In situations where somebody becomes unwell, for example, you need to also make a point of sharing or praying with them. I am a prayerful person. And so as part of my culture, I try to share and call them. I send them messages, short messages. That's a culture that I've developed over time. For the last 23 years, I've been in organizations. I said I've been in a multinational corporation. I've been in an educational institutions, and now a state corporation within government of Kenya. I've noticed that when you communicate with people, you understand their culture. There are people who like to be visited in hospital or institutions where they are in their homes. That's a very good culture that I've inculcated in my organization. And I think one time one of the officers came and told me, "Sir, I've learned a lot from you." There was a time she thought she had cancer. She had to go for checkups. She decided that she has to know very early whether she has a cancer. So after discussions with her, I told her, please go and have it checked. She came back and she said, she's okay now. And she said, through to your word, prayers and visits and the culture that you have incorporated in the organization, she's back to our office and she's having very well. So that's what some of the experience I would say about culture, communication, and change that we bring about as leaders. Thank you.
I like it. Thank you, Dr. Letting, so much for that. I agree totally. It makes a lot of sense to me. Pauline, you'd like to add?
Could I just add something? Thank you, Dr. Letting and George and Brett, for giving me this opportunity to add just something that I just suddenly came to mind after what you've both shared. In terms of the elements of well-being, I agree also with the communication to carry on that theme, and the fact that Dr. Letting is encouraging his people to speak up, to share it either in groups, and respecting that there are introverts and extroverts and that there's culture influence, just like I said earlier. Also, something else on a medical point of view, or maybe something that I've learned and that we've learned at Atrium from our team of wellness specialists. When you look at the elements of well-being, there's at least 5 that come to my mind: mental, physical, financial, social, and spiritual. Dr. Letton mentioned spiritual. I myself am also a practicing Catholic, and I learned something this morning at Mass, but I won't share that until later at the end. But mental, physical, these two, what's the difference? Well, mental, you can't always see it. You can't see that pain. There may be a smile, a very brave smile on someone's face. It might be something, some of your friends, you see them on Facebook, you see them on Instagram, on social media. They're smiling, they're in photos. But what's the reality? What's behind those smiles? They may not be as happy as they look on Facebook. When you have mental pain, when you have emotional issues, you may not want to talk about it straight away. You may need to find external professionals like we provide at Atrium counselling, or whatever it might be. You may turn to a friend, you may turn to your family, your colleagues, but this also has to be encouraged to speak out. Otherwise, unlike with physical pain, you go, ow, and oh, are you okay? What's wrong? And it's there, the signs and the symptoms are there. You are expressing it straight away. Or if someone breaks a leg or a fracture, or there's blood here or something, you know straight away there's signs, and you can take care of them, or you can point them. You take them to emergency room at a hospital, or they're taken by ambulance or by taxi or whatever it is. But with mental pain and emotion, it's not visible. And that's why there's that lack of awareness. If the lack of awareness, it's crucial that we change that. Awareness has to be at the forefront, have to train and educate, share experiences. Otherwise, don't suffer in silence. Reach out, and you're not alone. You'll find that you're very much not alone. There's people that actually may have had the similar experience to you, but haven't had the chance to talk about it.
Yeah.
Agree totally. Pauline, you can interject any time when you add such great value like that. So don't worry at all. Put your hand up as much as you like.
Thank you, all of you.
The only last points I'd probably add from my own perspective, because I agree with everything that everyone said, is the 2 key points I think for me, for in addition to what you've said for great leadership, is a real genuine care for everyone. If we're talking in the workplace, not just as an employee, but as a person, and really understanding who they are, what they're doing, what's their motivation for their life, not just for their job, but really understanding that, and then adjusting the approach that you have for every single individual. That would be one. And the second is around purpose. And for me, I think it's really important, people knowing what their role is, how it adds value to the organization, what they do each and every day, how it makes a difference to the overall organization and the purpose the organization's going through or going in. So from a work perspective, I think that's really important. And I've seen many times, I stand back and just watch people at the end of the day. And it could be at the lift when they push the button to go down, or it could be at the MTR station in Hong Kong, MRT station in Singapore. But they always stop for a second and just pause. And it might take 10 seconds, it could be 2 seconds, but a lot of people just think about their day. Did they achieve something? Do they feel good about it? Did the boss say, hey, good job on that presentation, or thank you for the work that you did, or how are you going? Just a little bit of different stuff like that. And I think everyone really reflects on that. And I think the key for me is making sure everyone has that purpose. The leaders and the organization know that and give feedback on it, just to make sure we tie those good days together. So people, when they're sitting there, that 10 seconds at the end of the day is a good one. And then they get to work the next day, or they go home to their family and they're in a good place. And the discussion at the dinner table may be just a little bit more livelier, and all these sorts of different things I think are so important for individuals and ultimately for organization and families and so forth. Pauline.
Right. Hi again. I actually just spotted that Christina in Singapore had actually sent a message about, to reflect on what we'd all been saying about talking to someone. And she mentioned who to turn to, who to choose to talk to, who to talk to, where to go, where to get that help, and obviously not leaving it till the crisis point to do that. So just in answer to that, as I just have to spot it coming up, Christina, that obviously in terms of leaders, in terms of HR management, in terms of anyone that's supporting the management of this, signposting is extremely important to communicate within your organization and to your employees, to your talents, just that, who can you turn to? There should be perhaps a contingency plan or an operations procedure or protocol, that there be a guideline or a manual or some very simple guideline with useful numbers, with useful contacts, or with useful organizations that you've engaged within your organizations that help with that support. And also possibly, and I think really in this is prevention is better than cure. I like to use an analogy with clients, and I hope Christina also finds value from this, that, it's like a protection having a fence at the top of a cliff. So that fence, I think I may have used this with you, Brett, at one point, the fence at the top of the cliff to protect and really protect your talents, including yourselves, all of you. And it might, whether it's your family, with your friends, with your colleagues, that protection, that fence at the top of the cliff to stop you from falling. There'll always be an ambulance or some kind of emergency contingency at the bottom of that cliff to whisk you away, but hopefully you don't need to use that. So hopefully, as Christina said, it shouldn't have to come to a crisis point. It should be well before that. You have to treat it early to make sure it doesn't get to that stage. Yeah.
Agree totally. Dr. Letting.
Yes, I just to add on to what Pauline has said, in our organization, it's a government organization, what we have done is we have identified a medical provider that as a consultant, counseling organization department that deals with issues that people have, mental issues. A sub member may be having a challenge with their family, financial challenges, or the social challenges. So what we do is that, because of confidentiality, we allow the staff members to call directly into a certain number so that they can be able to be helped by the organization. And you have asked the organization to treat that information with confidentiality and only share with us when it is necessary. And we have realized that that is the best way, because staff members in a situation where people are stigmatized, they may feel that if I share my situation, my mental situation with my colleague in the office, they are most likely to share with others, and before long, everybody within the organization knows about my challenge. And therefore, with that separate the relationship with another institution, which is a medical provider full of trained counselors, they have been able to handle those situations and given us just top of the line information. So what happens is set aside a budget where members of staff can visit them at their own time. Of course, that budget is reasonable, they can be able to manage those kind of situations. And therefore, rising from the organization that I work in, we realize that even the students that we serve, we are an examination body for accountants and investment analysts and corporation secretaries in Kenya and in Africa as well. And therefore, in Nairobi, what we do is that we reach out to so many of those students, we link them to appropriate institutions, we call them accredited institutions, and through that process, we have demanded that every institution should be able to have an arm for counseling, particularly when the results are announced for those students. Sometimes some of them do not expect to fail, but they fail because they were not really prepared because of COVID situation. So we have demanded of the institutions that they have a training arm, an arm for counseling, and an arm for guiding them so that they can be able to know what they are expected to do going forward. And from where I sit, I think the challenges of depression, the challenges mental health, well-being are the biggest thing now. And a number of institutions, I have as training in Kenya, there's an organization called Kenya Association of Professional Counselors, and they have been training leaders. I've also been trained for the whole week. Last week, we were training on professional counseling on how to deal with employees, employees and suppliers who have different challenges in their workplace, and where we can be able to relate to them very well. And so for me, I think it's very, very important to have champions, people who are able to work out together and share their thoughts with them, and then be able to move forward from there. And I think that is what it has worked out for us as an organization. Thank you very much.
Great advice. Great advice. Pauline.
Without doing, I don't mean to be salesy at this point. You know, I'm the director of Atrium HR Consulting, but I understand very firsthand what Dr. Letting has shared. And it's so amazing to hear that there is that service available to all of your people there in Kenya and around your neighboring organizations and countries. And Atrium actually is a provider of employee assistance and wellness support programs. It's part of what we do, as Brett knows, and also others maybe listening in are aware that yes, just to prove a point that yes, like Dr. Letting said, this obviously has increased a great deal, especially over the past year, 2 years, and especially because of COVID-19 and the pandemic. This has actually been reflected in the fact that from our own data, our counselling services have gone up by 350% just over the last year. And so we've actually, in order to meet demand, we've actually had to put through a real strong recruitment drive, and we've now actually increased our counselling core team by 100%. And we have over 2,500 wellness specialists, psychologists, psychotherapists, etc., working across the globe to meet the demand. And we're just so happy as an organisation to be able to help so many at such a difficult, challenging time. And I just wanted to share that in that context.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Dr. Letting, and also Pauline. And by all means, we'll all get in contact with you afterwards. We'll make sure that people have your contact details to get the advice because you're both doing amazing work. George, if we can just stay on the topic of mental health for a minute, and you mentioned vulnerabilities around leaders themselves. Are you able to touch on your experience in terms of leaders? Because sometimes leaders look after everyone else in the organization, but perhaps they don't look after themselves. Have you noticed this over time, or what's your feeling on the importance of making sure that leaders actually make sure they maintain their own mental well-being and so forth, not just for their teams, but for themselves?
Well, definitely. In fact, Brad, you have actually touched on a very important point. The leaders need to maintain his mental health for the sake of his people. And I'm going to leverage on this point with what Pauline has actually mentioned earlier on, that the two planes that we're going to look at, the mental wellness and the physical wellness, the two are actually quite closely linked together. In fact, they are quite interdependent on each other. The only difference is because the physical wellness can be seen from the outside, whereas the mental wellness can be easily hidden. And that's where leaders who probably have the wrong mindset will say that, okay, as long as I do not display out my mental weakness, I will be seen to be strong and a true leader to the outside world. And this is going to be the start of the downfall, not for the leader himself only, but for the whole team. Because the fact that you are chosen to be the leader, you need to have that personal awareness, that personal mastery, to know that you don't represent only yourself, but the whole team. I like to use the analogy, and this is something I used very often back in my military days, the analogy of a swan. You know how a swan looks that elegant, that graceful when they are sailing, when they are just paddling gracefully and slowly on the surface of the water. But underneath the water, there's the legs of the swan that's keeping it to stay afloat, because the leader is the one that's exposed outside. But then the hard work is all done by the legs underneath the water. And as the leader, that's the showcase, the poster person to the outside world, we have to know that we are who we are because of the hard work that is being provided by the people behind us, the people we are leading. And that's exactly the point that leaders have to bear in mind to keep themselves healthy, both on the physical plane and also on the mental plane. And this is the hard work, or should I say the toughness of being a leader, to admit to his vulnerability, to let his people know that, you know what, guys, thanks for doing all the hard work, but I am also doing hard work as well by trying to look good on the outside, not for my personal interest, but for the interest of the whole team. And only by that open communication within the team members will know that, okay, the leader is now tired. Now it's time for me to take over the show just for that short period of time, so that he can take a step back and rest, to get his rejuvenation, his whatever top-ups he needs, his recharge, so that he can bring us to the next lap. And yes, I think we mentioned, I believe it was Pauline and also Dr. Latin as well, touching on the importance of communication. The communication within the team, ideally should be open. And what is the communication within the leader himself? What is he telling himself to show out to the world? And there are some things that you can't show if you're the leader and the head of a CEO of an organization. Now, there are some things you cannot expose outwards, but there's always avenues within the organization itself that you can share your problem with, to bounce off ideas, and also just to let people know that I'm tired, I need a break. Can someone else step up? So yeah, very good question by Christina, because a leader shouldn't wait for a problem to happen to start having that conversation, to start having that communication. Because if you were to look at the preventive measure, had that open communication been upfront, started within the organization, that crisis will never have ever happened again. So the crisis somehow just bring out the point that it all started from the lack of communication within the organization, within the person himself, that he allowed the crisis to happen. But of course, we are not here to point finger and see who's to blame. Well, to be very truthful, if anything else fails in the organization, the leader is definitely the one to blame. But the subordinate, the team members, should have a part to play with it. We are all responsible for whatever the state the organization is currently in right now, the good and the bad. It is a shared responsibility that everyone needs to factor in, which I think is the best form that a team can ever take, shared responsibility. Of course, the leader had to take the most brunt of it, but every member has a part to play.
Yeah, I agree totally with you, George. I might just add one point, and that is that in terms of what we're talking about at the moment, it's very pertinent because of where the world sits at the moment. A lot of change, COVID, etc. But I must admit, organizations who have taken this approach in terms of leadership, wellness, etc., well before, and had it ingrained in the DNA, had the people within the organization, so it was more natural, I think are the ones that have been most successful through this situation, have been able to adjust quickly, because it's not that it's normal. COVID is definitely not normal, but being able to deal with a situation that could be a disaster for an organization, to be able to deal with this fairly quickly and so forth, I think because of that culture, because of that thinking and approach when it comes to well-being and leadership, I think is so important. I think, Pauline, I can throw to you. You'd like to add something, and then I can come back to a question that's come in on the chat for yourself, Dr. Letty. Pauline, over to you.
Sorry, can you repeat that? Sorry, I was
over to you,
distracted.
Pauline. I saw you raise your hand. Did you want to add?
No, actually, sorry, I was just probably touching a hair on my head. Sorry.
No problem. Okay, no problem at all.
Say something, Brett. I could say something.
Signals and signs are so important.
No problem. Over to you, Dr. Letty.
Yes, thank you, Brett. What I was saying is that one of the things I have noticed, and it's true, I like what George has said about self-reflection of the leader, where you have your own time, me time, where you are able to share, think about what is it that is affecting me personally. Is there something I can do different? And I've noticed that I have a social network of friends and a church that I worship, and I on a weekend during my service in church afternoon, I share some thoughts with some of my colleagues and tell them, colleagues, this is what I'm going through in life. Is there something I can do differently? And then they come back to me and they tell me, yes, objectively, we think that you can do things different. For example, I'll give a personal example, and I know Brett was going to ask me about my family. I have a family of 5 daughters, my wife and my 5 daughters. One of my last born daughter is has special needs. And so, unfortunately, when I take, she has a physical disability. So when we go to schools, we're looking for a place for her to go to school. most schools say we have stair classrooms and we cannot admit us your daughter there, and really that breaks me down as a person, as a father. And therefore, when I sit down to ask friends, is there something I do differently? And some of them decided, why don't we assist you to get a school that will take care of your child, who is now 12 years in grade 3, in primary school, in basic education. And I realized that by sharing out with my good, close friends, 50% of my problems is solved, because I'm now able to look at things in a different manner. After thinking in a different manner, I have friends whom I can soundboard with my thoughts in my place of work as well, outside the office. I have about 3 individuals who are able to tell me as it is, candidly. I tell them, this situation I'm facing today, and I like Pauline the way she has Atrium, the Atrium organization. I ask them, this situation I'm facing in my place of work, in my family, in my society, what can I do? And then they'll tell me, these are the options you can approach. And then when I pick out some more, out of 3 or 5 options given, I pick one of them, I find that it works out for me. The other thing that I've also noticed as a leader that works out for me is when you take time away from the usual environment of work. You do not have to be in the office 7 days a week. You can take a break from the office, work from home. With the COVID-19 that came out last year, we have now been able to work remote working policy. And that allows me to work from home. That also allows me to work from away from home, which is away from office, away from home, in a hotel somewhere. And within a short time, like a week or so, the things change, and I'm able to communicate. And thanks to technology, now we are able to communicate through technology, even with Hong Kong, Nairobi, and Singapore, and other places. And for me, technology has helped us out to be able to share our experiences and learn from each other. My colleagues have told me that for the last 2.5 years I've been in the organization, we have done a lot of good things together, and they are very happy to see that, because I've been in another institution. I joined this one about 2.5 years ago, and I believe that things are getting better by the day. Thank you so much.
Pauline has a point now.
It's just suddenly come to me. Anna, thank you so much. Really enjoyed hearing about your family and that remote working you were saying about remote working and having that flexibility, and that communication again came in again, and communicating with your family and taking good care of your daughters, especially your youngest. I just want to bring up a point about leaders and leadership, as we are talking about this, and also in terms of obviously relating it to our overall topic of surviving to thriving, well-being, wellness. 2 words always come up: sympathy and empathy, but they're not the same. Obviously, we all know that. Sympathy is maybe you've had the same feeling and you felt that same thing or experienced that same thing as someone else. Again, you need to share that. But empathy, that's something very different and something much more difficult to achieve as a leader, because being empathetic is actually, you may not have experienced the same thing as those people. It's putting yourself in another person's shoes. And that's really, really difficult and challenging. But there are leaders that are doing this. They're doing this on a daily basis. And I still need to bring up Brett as an example, because, you know, he's here and I've worked with him and Teresa's worked with him. And we know that he is one of those empathetic leaders. And I believe Dr. Letting, you, George, are also part of that empathetic leadership. And it's so great to see that, because it is so much more different than just feeling sympathy for someone or something. So I just wanted to add that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Pauline. I'm blushing again, so I'll quickly throw to another question. Dr. Letting, we had one specifically for you on the chat. It spoke around mental health for organizations at the moment, or just generally. It doesn't need to be for an organization. But how do we train people online at the moment, given everything's either on Zoom for the most part, etc.? How are we training people to really be able to spot perhaps an issue and how to help in terms of manage mental health and so forth, given the world where we sit today?
Thank you. Thank you for that question. For me, from where I sit, I have seen institutions that are both local and global that are able to share, to train online. I am aware of an institution in Kenya, which is called Kenya Association of Professional Counselors, that have trained I said I was trained for about a week, 5 days, on issues about mental health last week. I think it was starting during the month of October. It's a mental wellness month. And therefore, as a process of that, the association has been able to train a number of people online. And so my colleague, Paul Muya, was asked that question. Yes, there are opportunities for training online. You can attend. Indeed, this week, they're training about depression and suicide, and links to suicide. And so that one, you do not have to physically attend a class, but you can attend virtually with very nominal, I think it's a very nominal fee, so that they can be able to meet the cost of trainers and as well. So I think it is possible to train people so that they can be able to understand issues that are better placed, where they can be able to understand what are the issues of handling an individual who has a need, or a group of people have different needs, so that they can be able to understand these issues and sort them out as they appear. Thank you, Chairman.
I like that. Pauline.
Yes, thanks for that, Dr. Letting, and thanks, Brett and George and everyone listening. Again, we can relate to that very much, as Atrium also is one of these types of organisations that has that service available. And to your point, Dr. Letting and Brett answering about how to train online, Atrium is actually, it's not new to us. It's a very we are a remote working organisation, global support, and a multilingual. That's also important for communication. And yes, again, training online, but first and foremost in terms of confidentiality, obviously, as well. But then in terms of specialist training programs, which we offer extensive wide range, the most popular topics at the moment is well-being awareness and practical self-care. And these are two of the things that has come up very, very often throughout our conversation up till now. We've always gone back to that need for well-being awareness, coping with anxiety and fear, mitigating the risk, holding difficult conversations, thriving in uncertain times, and also back to some other point that came up about stigma. I think Dr. Letting and George may have touched on that, and Brett, stigma and resilience. There still is that. Asia, from here I'm sitting in Asia, and George, not sure if George has seen this, I'm sure you have. There is still that resilience and stigma in terms of that old traditional way of thinking. It may be cultural, because for Chinese, I'm half Chinese, but correct me if I'm wrong, in terms of that stoic sort of, and also that in terms of my British side, that stiff upper lip, oh, let's snap out of it, get on with it, we can, you know, this is silly, we can do it, I'm not going to be defeated, I'm strong. Well, you can't be strong all the time. We all have our stresses, we all have our ups and down days. It's like a roller coaster ride, and we need to first of all recognize that, and also accept it and admit it, and reach out and share. And this can be done, again, as Dr. Letting has shared. He's had this training online, which is absolutely amazing. But this can be done virtually, and obviously this is most convenient because of the times we're in. But this can be done, and it should be encouraged.
I agree with both of you, and I think this is another reason why summits like this are so important, and you need really strong leaders like Teresa and Veronica to put events like this on, to raise the profile, just to highlight how important it is, you know. So I think having these sorts of things, the leadership that both you Teresa and Veronica have shown is amazing, just to share and have these sorts of discussions, I think is amazing. I'd like to transition, if we can, from more to home, leadership at home and wellness at home. So George, over to you. Can you share some of your experiences? What's your feeling? And I'd love to know, has your experience in the military helped you in terms of your leadership at home, or not at all?
Wow, that is, well, if I were to put the two contexts, my workplace, which is the military context, and bring it back home, I guess the difference would be wider than most of us in the room who are pretty much working in corporate setting and then bringing it back to home. At least the transition isn't that diverse. But from my growing up years and my experience of being a military leader and transiting into being a leader at home, because I'm a father of 3 girls, this is where the audience is absolutely different. You know, as a military commander, you just have to say a particular instruction. 300 people will come and do your bidding. They'll just say, okay, my commander said this, and I'm just going to start doing it the next minute. But at home, it is a different method and approach. I'm saying this because right now in this room, yeah, my family, my girls are listening to it, so I better say the right thing. If not, they will walk away with the wrong idea. But yes, it's a different kind of audience, because at home they are girls, they are kids, and they probably wouldn't behave just like how my men and my soldiers will be behaving. But if you look at it from a different context, a different perspective, the two are actually quite similar. It is about communication. So in the context of a military setting, our way of communication is, yes, I'm a soldier. When orders are given, I will never question why. I will do it first. And then after that, we get the mission done, we get the result. Then we do a after action review. Then we do a review and see what can be done better. At home, it is also communication that's important. It is just that the mode of communicating, the way that we are going to communicate might need to be different versus how I do it in the military. So I was fortunate. I mean, I am fortunate to have that diverse context, upbringing, and putting myself to various tests where obviously I have lots of feedback when I'm trying to communicate at home. Why are my girls not listening to me? Why are they always defying my orders? And when I take a step back, like what we mentioned earlier on, that self-reflective mode of a leader, of a father, of a mother, of whoever you are, you could be an elder sibling, but this is the point. Everyone at home is a leader at some point in time. And if you can lead at your workplace, definitely that way of thinking, that mindset is actually what's going to make you a good leader at home. It's just that the context is different, the people are different, probably their discipline is different, their respect level is different, but communication doesn't move away. If you're able to build up that stable communication within the family, within the military, within your workplace, or even within yourself, this is where you will realize that whenever it's time for you to step down, someone else in your context will be ready to step up and take over your role. And it is important for leaders to know that vulnerable part, the period that we need to take a rest, because leaders are human beings. Now, even machines need time to rest. If not, if you work a machine 24 hours, they will break down by the time their lifespan is up. How about human being, especially human being? We need to know that we need time to recharge. We need time to rejuvenate. And while we are away from home, from our position, who is there to take over the role? This is the part which I always find that is important. That's why I'm very close to my deputy in my previous workplace, because we almost take an equal amount of responsibility. And his responsibility, his job is to take over and watch out for my blind spot. And so am I doing for him. And this is the good thing, when your subordinate is seeing that, hey, this is happening, it's actually a good way of gaining leadership. And who's the deputy for yourself at home? It's your partner, it's your spouse, it could be your parents, it could be someone who you're close to, that can take over your role whenever you are away, because you need to be away. No one is indispensable, and no one should be indispensable. It's a sure way of failure when you build yourself to be that point of failure, because what happens if you're not around? The world breaks down. But then I think any logical leader, any logical organization, any logical family should be always looking at, okay, what happens if the number one man is not around? Can the number two step up, and vice versa? So I guess communication is still ultimately the key mode of success. And when things doesn't go out well, doesn't turn out right, it's always the lack of communication, or probably too much of it. And when you're talking too much but no one is listening, that's it. There is no communication. It's like, hey, I'm telling you something. I'm telling you, but the other party does not recognize the language. You're probably not talking at the same frequency. So you have to be a flexible communicator, both at work and also at home. This is my take from my own experience. And yeah, Pauline, I think you got some point to share on that as well.
Yeah, I also thank you, George, for great insight into that. And yeah, I agree. At home, there are similarities. But again, I just noticed Christina again making some comments about, you know, in terms of parents, siblings, her father being the commando of the family, and so on and so forth. And Christina, I know you're listening. Hope this can. I just wanted to share with you, from my point of view, I need to communicate with my elderly parents, and my mother is the number one because she's a retired nurse. And so it's a tough nut to crack, because she's so independent. She's had that, like you, George, and Dr. Letting, and you've held that great position of responsibility and have authority and are a leader and guiding your people, your men, your people in Kenya, and so on and so forth. And my mum having that responsibility of being in charge of patients, her medical staff, her nurses. And then how can I then make her listen to me, her daughter? I'm her subordinate. She's my leader. And my father has slight dementia. So we have this issue of how to take care of dad. And so mum wants to take it all on herself. So I need to communicate with her all the time and try to break down that barrier, break down those barriers that I'm the leader and I can do it all on my own, and you know, I'm tough. And finally, I'm making progress. And so again, it's communication. And Mum, here, I'm just downstairs. We live in the same building. I'm your backup, but you're still my leader. You're still my mummy. You're my boss, and we can look after dad together. But we have a backup team. And at some point, if you carry on like that and don't let me step in, your health will suffer. You will break down. So you need the backup. So, you know, and it's just like with computers, you need iCloud, you need backup systems, you know, to step in and do recovery and like George was saying, leaders need to rest. And so this is what I've wanted to share. But finally, Christina, I hope that helps you and everyone listening. Yeah, you need to break down barriers all the time. And it just takes time and patience and great communications and effective communication, and letting everyone know that we're working together. And just one quick little thing, because I can't wait to put this in. I mentioned earlier, I was at Mass this morning, and Father JD, our priest, who's new actually to our parish, from America, he talked about the synod of bishops that's now advising the Pope. So a synod, actually the word comes from the Greek, synodis, and actually it means walk together, walk together. So all of us leaders are like a synod. They're walking together, and we're all walking together as a family, in our social lives, in the office, everywhere. We all need to walk together like a synod everywhere around the world. We all need to come together, and it's uniting everybody. We need to encourage that unification, collaboration, communication, awareness, empathy. Yeah,
I couldn't agree more. And I think one thing just to add on is that our children, our youth will see that and see the example that we set, and hopefully we can raise a generation that's even better in terms of leadership, understands the importance of wellness and mental well-being and so forth, and can step up and lead the way going forward. So I'm looking forward to the future if more and more people can do the sort of leadership that you're talking about. I saw Dr. Letting, you put your hand up. You have 5 girls. I'd love to hear more from you on leadership and wellness at home.
Thank you so much, Brett. Listening to George, and George he has 3 daughters. I'm slightly two more above his, and Pauline also with all parents. So I have my parents in the rural areas. My mom and my dad are there about 400 kilometers out of Nairobi. And they are, my father was like Christina's dad, and also like George. He was in the army many years ago. So he was a very strict person. You know, you could not do anything. When he calls you, you don't have to wait to be called again. He's disciplined you very hard. And so out of us, the 7 of us, I followed very closely. I'm the second born in the family. And I like my dad because always, even now, I'm doing a small project at home, and he comes to check and says, he tells me, you know, you have got a very good contractor who's doing a project that we are doing, constructing a house for ourselves. Now, coming to my family, my immediate family, as a father, I make sure that I take my children to school, and I guide them. Every time the schools open, they're in a boarding school, I go with them to school, and they are very happy. Sometimes I tell them now, it is your responsibility. My firstborn has just completed university in Kenya, and the secondborn is in another university. 2 or 3 of them are in the university, and one of them in the high school, and one in primary, the one with special needs. And so I find them that they organize themselves. They are leaders of their own rights. They prepare a menu for a whole week. They say on Monday we'll eat something special like this, like that. On Saturday when you're at home, we eat something special for all of us. And they know we're able to wake up very early when all the rest of us are sleeping. We wake up very early, cook for us the best meal for us. When we wake up, we find the meal. And the mother is also very keen. So I am pampered as a father and as a husband. And I like it because they have told me, your leadership in the office ends at the entrance of the house. In the house, we become the leaders. They lead everything. They organize the house, and they tell me now, you have to guide. You have to tell us whether, as a customer, are you happy with the services we are providing for you in the house? And I find it very satisfying because I go home and I feel refreshed. I am able to share. I am able to cool down from the pressures of work. And I think for me, family is also a strong pillar for as a leader. Because without a family, then you may not have a strength to wake up tomorrow morning to come and serve the people that you are serving. Because you serve diverse people, you come in the office in the morning and you find very difficult customers or difficult stakeholders, and they require your attention. So if you have pressure from home and pressure from the office, I can assure you you'll break down as a leader. But from the situation I'm able to see, I have the support from the family, the support from my church. I'm a devout Adventist church member. I go to church and I receive the summons from the church leadership, and I also lead there. I participate in the process of leading as an elder in the church. And therefore, for me, I draw my strength from the defined and family relationship that I have also in the office. And therefore, for me, I want to say that everyone that you interact with in our lives affect us in one way or another, whether positively or negatively. But I think one of the things that I've learned over the years, now I'm 50 years, is that it is possible to learn even from a young baby. It's possible to learn from a young person, an old person. There's a saying in Africa that says, what a young man can see while standing on top of a tree, they may not be as much as an old man sitting down on a couch. They can be told a lot of things by the old people. That's why, listen, I organize within a month, once in a month, I visit my parents to share my experiences, and I listen to them. And from there, I come back refreshed to come to the office. Thank you so much.
Excellent. Thank you, Dr. Letting. Okay, we're getting close to the end. We've got about 10 minutes left. So I just wanted to pose one more question to you, and then we can do some closing comments from everyone. So perhaps, George, I can hand to you first. What lies ahead? What do you see happening in the next 12 months? And perhaps if you can touch in particular on helping people who perhaps have leaders in their either work life or home life that aren't really setting the right example, laggards when it comes to well-being and so forth. What advice would you give to them, and what do you see happening over the near term in the future?
Yes, well, Brett, thanks for the question. We are into a new normal right now, and even when borders start to open up, my guess is it's never going to get back to the same old. The virtual world is pretty much going to be half, if not more than what we are doing right now. But then I guess it's important for human beings to note the importance of that personal and physical touch. As much as convenience and easy accessibility towards content, knowledge from the online world, it is important to note that human beings still need to get connected. So be it at work or at home, I guess it's important to just get out of the family. Bring the family out of the house and just get in touch on a personal note, physical touch, I mean, spending time together, both with a colleague and with your family, so that the world is not only just virtual, because you know how much Zoom fatigue most of us have been going through right now. And I'm going to write on what Dr. Letting have mentioned, work from home. At that moment when he was mentioning the word, because WFH, right, work from home, is like a good word, is a convenient word, but it's now becoming a taboo word as well. Like too much of work from home is driving people crazy. What about home from work? It's like bringing your home over to your workplace so that everyone gets connected as a family member, even in the work structure, even in the work context. So the two are just going to be very, very thinly divided, or as a matter of fact, the two are just going to mesh together. So your workplace is a home place, your home place is a workplace. Your colleague is going to be a family member. Your family member is pretty much your colleague as well. So that part about that delineation, I guess, is very hard to keep a physical line. That's why I would always strongly recommend that whenever possible, get out from the home, get out from the virtual world, do some physical stuff, physical activities like play some sports, go climb some mountains, or even just go for a swim, go diving, whatever it is, just get away from your old routine so that that mental health and the mental wellness of the leader and also the subordinate, both in the work environment and the home environment, continue to stay positive, because the world is such a what I call it's easy to distract us from the important things in life. So very importantly, leaders, especially parents or elder siblings, where caretakers, caregivers, you have to note that it is important to maintain that overall wellness in a person's mental and physical state. That's what I got to share.
Agree. Thank you, George. If I can perhaps add before I hand to yourself, Pauline, I think for me, my advice to those who are perhaps falling a little bit behind on this is, you know, listen to summits like this, have an understanding of what's happening out there in the world, and be prepared to make changes to what's happening either in your organization or perhaps in home, to really move things forward. And one thing I hope that really does happen is this flexibility in terms of work life, understanding that everyone's life is different. Everyone's work times are now different. We can work online, although we don't like it so much, but why do you need to either have office or home? Have a balance between the two. And if you would implement one thing, there was one policy that I implemented with the former company I worked for, and that was flexible Friday. So what we went by that is by 1 o'clock on Friday, everyone was finished. So it's a 4.5-day work week. And everyone was done 1 o'clock in the afternoon, whether you're working from home or working from the office, everyone was finished. And it's just amazing what people can do when they say, look, I can pick up my children from school on Friday. I've never done that in a year or 2 years or whatever the case may be. And perhaps some people might go to the pub in the afternoon. Okay, that's their life. They can do what they want. But that 4.5-day work week, to provide that flexibility, I think is one that is just such a low-hanging fruit that you can do. And as a business manager or leader, you can't try to add that to your profit and loss statement. It doesn't work. So don't think of it as anything in terms of something you need to get return on investment. Have an investment in people and their time and their well-being. And I think you're going to get great results moving forward. So Pauline, I'll hand to you.
Okay, just last sharing from me and reminders to laggards that are possibly not being as good leaders as they can be, is just one simple thing. Well-being will impact the bottom line. Well-being of your people is so important. People are your business. Without people, there's no business. So that hopefully will change that mindset. In terms of going forward, I agree with Brett and what you're all saying. There's so many different phrases that are being used at the moment. There's hybrid working models, remote working, WFH, work from home, but I think that's slowly fading. It's remote working, and as Dr. Letting said, working from anywhere really, a hotel, your home, your work, but giving people those choices, as Brett mentioned, and that flexibility is so important, communication. And again, the the balance between the physical and the mental. And once the physical and the mental, because as George was saying, that can't be separated, they're intertwined. Going forward, if everyone remembers that, whether in your family, whether it's your friends, in the workplace, in the corporate world, as a leader, all of us are leaders, all of us are ambassadors of our own well-being. And by doing that, we're helping others to take care of themselves too. And yes, that's more or less what I have to share in a nutshell. Thank you.
Thank you, Pauline. Over to yourself, Dr. Letting.
It's very difficult to speak after George and Pauline and Brett. Thank you. It was a great pleasure being able to share my experience. I think going forward, the issue of communication, change management, people management, as well as collaboration is the way to go. We need to think about how we can support those with challenges in terms of mental wellness. We need to create some sessions where they can be able to share their thoughts with them. I think there's going to be need for more training, as colleagues have indicated there. We need to have more training on how to sort out issues. You have seen in media here in Kenya that some people, because of depression, they have gone into the other side. They have become the extreme side of being violent or even vital in terms of killing other people. And therefore, I think what is going forward for the next 12 months, as Brett has asked, is to be able to reach out to many people through organizations, organized sessions like these ones, where apart from the October month being the mental wellness month, we can be able to make it a regular requirement that every organization, government, private, not-for-profit organization should be able to make arrangements to at least reach out to many, and even social networks like churches or places of worship, where you can be able to interact with many people, create some time to interact with those people, share some of the experience. And I like the issue of using personal experiences, some of the things that George was sharing about, what he does as a military person and at the family level. I think those are some of the things, and even Pauline on the issue of the well-being of employees. I think that is very, very important. I'm taking away the issue of being able to take care of the employees so that they can take care of their customer, the stakeholders that are there. I think that will be very, very big. And thank you, Brett, so much for that. I thank Teresa for the opportunity to interact with the global team that is here. I think I'm representing Africa. Africa is a large continent. We welcome you to Kenya, to Africa, and also to Kenya specifically. We have a lot of tourist attractions in Africa, in East Africa, and I look forward to interacting with you in the near future. Thank you so much and have a good day.
Thank you so much. Okay, so thank you for the closing. I think we all answered the last question and did our closing comments in one. So thank you very much to everyone. So if I can just summarize and just some closing remarks. I think it is such an important topic, and we've seen from the chat and the feedback from all of you about how important it is. There's so many different factors involved with it. You know, listening is so important to make sure we understand what's going on home, and this is for home and at work. Communication is so important. Leaders need to make sure that they're looking after their own well-being and also that of their teams. But also, I think one key point two key points that have come through is it's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to share that, you know, I'm going through some issues myself and I need to work through them myself. And second to that is that it's a team effort. So the more that we have it, so there's more people that are working on this and moving either the organization or the home front forward, the better off we're going to be as leaders. But more importantly, even the better off the organization and the family is going to be as a result of that. So thank you all very much for your input today. Pauline, Dr. Letting and George, you did an amazing job. I'm sure you're going to get a lot of email or message requests to have a chat in the future. So thank you very much for all your value that you've added today. And to Veronica and Teresa, thank you so much. I think this panel and the entire event is such an important thing that you put on, and I really appreciate it personally, and on behalf of everyone in the audience that's joined, really thank you so much for your leadership and really promoting well-being and mental well-being to the world. So thank you very much, and I'll hand back to you, Teresa.
Thank you.
Thank you
so
Brett.
much.
Yeah,
everyone.
Thank you.
Brett.
Thank you for being our panelist.
Right.
Thank you.
And thank you,
so much.
George from Singapore, Dr. Nicholas Letting in Kenya joining us. It's still relatively early, but thank you. It's a Sunday morning. And Pauline in Hong Kong and Brett in Melbourne. Thank you so much for such a fantastic discussion, right, Veronica?
Yes. Leadership is so important at home and at work.
Yes, and I think you guys touched almost every single aspect that we need to know for both at home and at work. And I do believe that leaders lead well. Only leaders can lead well. And I think every single one of you, I was listening, you have demonstrated it today, whether it's at home or at your workplace. And I love the word vulnerability, especially coming from 3 men and our female gender Pauline representative there. And I think it's so good that we open ourselves up to setting examples that it is okay to break down. It is okay not to feel okay. And Brett, I didn't get a chance to tell you because I've been so busy with this summit, but you know, he reached out for something, and it's the first time that since we known each other that, because Brett is always the person that's helping others. It's always Teresa saying, Brett, I need something, or Brett, can you help me with something? Or, you know, it doesn't have to be something big, but he just said, you know, Teresa, can I ask your help? And I was so touched. I was nearly in tears. He doesn't know that, but I nearly was, because I find it's just so sweet, you know, as friends that, and as a guy and someone who's so capable and who's such a great leader, that he finally said, Teresa, I need some help. And thank you for that, Brett. It's so beautiful. It really is. And I think we need men, women, everybody out there need to know that. And this is something that I've shared with my mom. You know, as a mom, you know, if you're tired, it's okay. You know, you had 7 kids and 13 grandchildren. You have done a lot. Apart from working and everything else, you know, it's okay to go to bed early. It's okay to just not be. Or it's okay to just be, you know, whatever it is that you're feeling, which you guys have so well addressed today. So thank you so much. Really, really grateful. And Veron and I will start crying very soon.
Yeah, we learned so much from all of you today.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to share and be a part of this, Teresa and Veronica.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brett. Thank you, Dr. Letting and George.
Pauline.
And I'm surprised
Stay
no
in
one
touch.
noticed that I've changed to a new outfit.
Oh, but pretty in pink.
Pretty in pink to match Pauline,
Yes.
of course.
She's all ready to dance.
Yeah, as I said, if you guys could just stay and join the celebration, you know, we got another hour to go. So if you guys could do that, I would really appreciate it. But you know, if you're busy, of course, I understand that. So we're gonna send you off, or you could stay, but we're gonna bring up the next item, right, Veronica?
That's right.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Take care. Be
Bye.
well.
Thank you.
Be in
Bye.
touch
Thank
soon.
you.